This is called Pivot Fridays for this month. Pivot Fridays. And last week we had a wonderful time. I got really excited. It was a wonderful time. Thank you guys for being on the call last week. For those of you who are on the call for the first time, I want to thank you all. I'm going to get right to the point. I'm not going to belabor it because I believe in being precise and on point. So if you're taking notes, the title of the message today is It Takes What It Takes. That's right. That's right. It takes what it takes. What do you mean by that, Mr. Sam? Well, guys, if you can roll that first video for me, sir, it would explain a little bit of
There's
what I'm
three
talking about.
people in my lifetime that I admired on how hard they work: Jerry Rice, Walter Payton, Kobe Bryant. He never worked out just once a day. He would get up at 4 in the morning, or he said, meet me at a gym at 4 in the morning. And he would work out for 2-3 hours, lifting, because he knew he had to get stronger. You had to get bigger. You're a basketball player, just get stronger, right?
Yeah.
Then he would go eat breakfast, and then he'd come back and he'd make 500 shots. So he'd be there another 2 hours. Then he'd get ready for practice, right? He'd go through a 2.5 hour, 3 hour practice like it's nothing. Then he'd go have lunch and blah, blah, blah. He'd chill out for another hour. Then he'd come back at night and work out again. Because he was like, B, if I work out 3 times a day and all these other guys who are so-called great players work out just for practice, they just work out that 1 time a day. He said, over a 5-year period, they can't catch me. I've worked on my body. I've worked on my footwork. I've worked on my shot. So 5-10 years from now, they can't catch me. They're that far behind.
All right, all right, all right. I hope you guys caught the gist of what I'm trying to convey. It takes what it takes. If you notice what the former player was talking about Kobe Bryant, we often call it a mumble mentality. A mumble mentality. That's because, guys, there's only a select few people in the world that can honestly say that they had that mentality. First of all, guys, in order to have a mumble mentality and understand it takes what it takes, you have to understand you have to have 3 ingredients. I believe 3 ingredients to have that mentality. And if you're taking notes, the 3 ingredients are dedication, determination, and desire. Let me repeat that. Dedication, determination, and desire. That's ultimately what you need to have if you have not only a mumble mentality, but you got to have a spirit on you that understand it takes what it takes. Now, if you notice in that video, you may have to go back and play it again. But if you notice in that video, guys, Kobe Bryant worked out at least 3 times a day. Now, where we hear that from? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. We heard that from the great Mr. Al Thomas. Remember, guys, he adopted that mentality as well. That shark mentality. He wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That mentality says we're going to wake up early than everybody else and we're going to put in a little bit more than the average person. Now, if you checked out that video, the individual talked about Kobe Bryant and said he works out in the morning, he worked out in the evening. Well, by the time he worked out in the evening, guys, he had already worked out twice as much as the average. Okay, Daryl Ransom, watch that part. He had already worked out twice as much as the average person. Well, let me flip the script a little bit. Let me use Mr. Al Thomas because you know I'm a graduate of Al Thomas University. Well, if Al Thomas got up at 4 o'clock to make his first walk, right? And then he walked again in the evening time, well, he already peaked twice as hard as the average. He peaked twice as hard as the Jackie Black. He peaked twice as hard. Well, could it be said, shark slash mamba mentality? That's why Mr. Thomas is senior vice. Wait a minute, somebody gonna get this. Gloria Foster, somebody got Rick Kubiak all the way in Atlanta, Mannahoonies. It works over there like it works over here. The mama mentality, the SVP mentality. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me these guys had a determination, the dedication and desire to understand if I put a little bit more time into my business, I can double up before lunch. I can double up and I'm working twice as hard as the average person because I got up earlier. My mentality was free. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me, Miss Terry, my mentality was fresher because I put another log on the fire? So the Army used to say that they got up earlier than most people and they did more before 9 a.m. than most people did all day. I'm dating myself, but that's what the Army used to say, Rick Kubiak. They did more before 9 a.m. than that. So you mean to tell me I can double up on my efforts if I get up early and have a mentality that the average person doesn't have? And like Mr. Thomas always says, get off the couch eating bonbon. Wait, if I just got off the couch a little bit and expressed myself, I doubled up. But then if I adopted the Mamba mentality, then I went back to work that evening, well, then I triple threaded myself to do it morning, evening, and night. Kobe Bryant said the average person, he lost them when they was at practice. He said because they usually came in later and was the first ones to leave. He said, I never want to pass them the ball. He said, they called me a ball hog. I said, but I couldn't trust. He said, I couldn't trust them. So do we have people on our team that they might need to adopt the mama mentality so they can trust themselves first before anybody else can trust them? Why? Because people can smell a phony. They can smell when you're doing this as a lifestyle, guys. They can smell it. It's in your conversation. It's the way you move. It's the way you talk. Nobody has to worry about if Al Thomas is an SVP because his aura brings that out. It's in his pores. It's in the way that he can. Wait a minute. You mean to tell me I can make this a lifestyle? And if I did it on a regular basis, if I adopted the mentality of doing it as if I'm going for a religious experience, it becomes a lifestyle? So you mean dedication, determination, and desire can become a lifestyle and it can adopt itself to a mama mentality? Wait a minute, you mean to tell me another person that I highlighted had the same mentality, guys, and that was Floyd Mayweather, Mr. 50 and 0. He had the same mentality, getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning. In order to be on his staff, you had to be on the ready at all times because he liable to get up in the morning after using the restroom and say, I'm ready to run. Well, you got to have the security people. You got to have everybody in place because he was ready to run. Not in his backyard. He was ready to run the streets of Las Vegas. And he said, guys, I knew my competition was still in the bed. In other words, guys, is your mentality still in the bed? Because the Mamba mentality says, I'm ready to do what it takes at all times. And I'm ready to make it a lifestyle of being dedicated, determined, and have a desire to see this thing through. With that said, guys, if you could play that second video for me, I surely would appreciate it.
You know, these guys, they all think they have this illusion of choice. Like I can do whatever I want to do. But the fact of the matter is if you want to be good, you really don't have a lot of choices because it takes what it takes. You have to do what you have to do to be successful. So you have to make the choices and decisions to have the discipline and the focus to the process of what you need to do to accomplish your goals.
All right, guys. If you notice who that was the great Nick Saban himself, who, by the way, guys, is responsible for 7 national championships, who just retired this past year. 7 national championships. And as you heard me say last week, this guy's personally responsible for his players in the NFL today that has matched over $1 billion in contracts. That's not an accident, guys. He preaches a mentality of the process. And remember what he says, you don't have a lot of choices. It takes what it takes. Now, with that said, you have to have a mentality, either you're going to be a coach or a player. And usually the coach has been a player at some point in his or her life. In other words, guys, we're always going to have a teacher around us somewhere. But if we're doing it the right way, we ultimately become a coach based on our lifestyle that we choose to lead. Now, with that said, guys, I told you I wasn't going to be long. I was going to be like a dart in the wind, because I too am on location, peaking, and peaking. Now, I'm not just a client. I'm also a representative of the average person that sees themselves farther than where they are. And I do this because I too have a Mamba mentality, but it takes what it takes. So if you have it, express yourself. If you don't have it, give yourself the opportunity to pace yourself and wake up every day and say, I want to be better than the day before. And if you do that, guys, you're going to adopt a mentality of a dedicated person that's determined and has the desire to win, whether it's SVP, whether it's being the best person you can be, you will be successful. With that said, Mr. Thomas, this has been my time on this Pivot Friday. It takes what it takes, and I endorse this message. Thank you, sir.